The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Tone Vase from Liberty Life Trail.
Thanks for having me on again. Looks like it's just the two of us this time, and viewers will see that I am working on upgrading equipment.
Excellent. And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1, Gavin versus the core. When a bug in Bitcoin Unlimited led to a loss of 13 Bitcoins, more than $13,000 at the time of this show, former Bitcoin lead developer Gavin Andresen took to Twitter to speak out. Not about the loss, but about the strong reaction of the Bitcoin core team, saying that loses $12,000 from the Bitcoin Unlimited bug. Some core devs scream. Users paying millions in excessive transaction fees over the last year. Meh, not a priority. Is Andresen right? Has Core's slow focus on SegWit and refusal to allow bigger blocks stolen millions from users in excessive transaction fees? Tone Vase.
Oh, my bad, yeah, I was on mute. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm actually going to bring up the exact same tweet that you were just focused on, mostly because, I read this, I was reading the article, and this tweet made absolutely no sense to me. I'm like, what is Gavin talking about? And then the article went ahead and explained that, he's talking about that the core wants high fees, and the fees are too high. I'm going to talk about the 13 Bitcoins that they lost in a minute. But this argument just drives me up the wall. And when these arguments come from people that have been in the Bitcoin space since like 2010, and Gavin Andresen, who literally pretty much ran the shop early on, this drives me insane because what he's saying is that they just want excessive fees. But SegWit is going to bring Lightning Network, which is going to take the transactions off-chain. Because in the beginning, the big blockers were arguing that the core dev team is colluding in order to prevent the miners from getting fees. And now, not even 6 months later, they realized how stupid that argument was. And now they're on, well, the core team is making fees too high, as opposed to their original argument that the core is removing the fees from the miners. So which is it? Because honestly, it's neither of those things, right? This is insane. First you blame core for taking fees off-chain, now you're blaming core for putting fees on-chain. And this is driving me up the wall. And with each successive FUD in one and the other, it's like you're reading the book 1984. First you're at war with East Asia, then you're at war with what was the other one? West Asia? It was
Eurasia.
Eurasia.
But we've always been at war with Eurasia.
Right. I mean, that's what it is, right? So first they were at war with miners not having enough fees. Now they're at war with miners having too many fees. And then what's going to happen? Then they're going to flip back? Anyway, that's driving me up the wall. Now let's talk about this bug, which basically this is the block. So they mined just a little bit over one kilobyte. And sorry, 1 megabyte, not 1 kilobyte. I'm out. And it was rejected by the network. And this came about, from my understanding, that it was that it was a line of code that was commented out that should have stayed there, that prevented it from happening. And this goes to the competency of the development team, which is why I'm a big supporter of the core team, because that code's been fully tested, done really well. I don't really have anything else to comment on this, so let me stop sharing my screen on that point.
All right, well, I'd like to thank our 50 live viewers, and if everyone could just thumbs up this video and share it, that helps us get more viewers. But what I would say is there's two competing visions right now. I believe that the Bitcoin Unlimited team has the vision of Bitcoin, the currency, where you could spend money and you could buy Starbucks with Bitcoin. I believe that the core team has a different vision. Bitcoin is the settlement system, Lightning Network, side chains, et cetera, are where I would buy my coffee. And I think it's the battle between these two visions that we're seeing. And it is interesting that Gavin took a year to finally speak out about the transaction fees. But the other side of this is that you want to go slow and steady with your segregated witness update. You want to have it tested. You want to be sure of it. We're dealing with people's money here. And I think that's the core team's attitude, that they should be patient and diligent and prudent and really take their time with this. Tone, what do you think about that?
I mean, I agree with it. I agree with it all along, but Gavin's been jumping, right? First, he was, I think, he was on Bitcoin Classic. It's been so long, and maybe because, you know, a year in Bitcoin is like 3 years out of your life. I believe Gavin was the Bitcoin Classic guy, and now he's with Bitcoin Unlimited, and after Bitcoin Unlimited, there'll be something else. But Bitcoin Unlimited is already having, you know, a lot of power right now, mostly because of Roger Ver. And I still think sooner or later, Ver is going to run out of money to fighting this. Well, we're going to talk more about this later on, right? We're going to talk about SegWit, unless you want to flip
We still got that for later, but let's move on to the exit question. How much is too much to pay for a Bitcoin transaction? $1, $5, $10?
There isn't, right? Because it's all about what you need your transaction for. For me, if I'm buying a cup of coffee, paying more than 3 to 5 cents is too much. But if I'm transferring my life savings from one cold storage to another, then well, 1,000 in my case would be too much. But something like 20, 30 bucks, I'll gladly pay that. You know, to move a few $1,000s if I know it's happening safely. So it really depends on your transaction. The one story I heard was someone was was knocking on some bar because they've already closed and they had a Bitcoin ATM, you know, offering the bar $100 if they would let him in to use the ATM. I don't know how true this is, but this is one of the stories I heard. So people will pay $100 just for the ability to buy Bitcoin, right? Plus whatever the transaction actually costs.
I think your first point is the right point. It's all about what the use case is. If you're buying coffee and you have dollars in your wallet and you got credit on your credit card, you don't really need to use Bitcoin. So $1, $5, $10, you could say no. But if you're buying something on the internet that maybe you can't buy normally, if you're moving your money around large amounts, if you're doing other things that only Bitcoin can do, then I agree with you, Tone. It's worth anything to pay for that transaction. If you're paying $5, $10 to order an item that's impossible to order any other way, or to send money to your friends overseas and they don't have any other form of accepting cash, Bitcoin is the way. But if it's something like coffee that you could do with your normal money, it's never going to be competitive at $5 a transaction fee. Well, let's move on to the next issue. Issue 2. Issue 2, Bitcoin's privacy. Bitcoin's privacy gets a failing grade. The Open Bitcoin Privacy Project has given Bitcoin a grade, and it's not good. They say Bitcoin privacy is virtually non-existent due to the merging of funds, the reuse of Bitcoin addresses, and the linking of addresses to identities, and the resulting network analysis, which can be surprisingly successful. Thomas Hunt, is the OBPP correct? Is Bitcoin privacy failing? I would say again, it's a misnomer. It's difficult to have the thing that you never had. Bitcoin never had true privacy. Bitcoin was always pseudo-anonymous. If you bought your Bitcoins just the right way, if you stored them just the right way, and if you sent them to the right person, you could be generally anonymous. But as so many of us find, when you start using a system like Coinbase or any other system that links to your identity, it's so difficult to buy those Bitcoins any other way. Your account's linked, your checking account, you just move the money over, buy the Bitcoins, and then you're set. But you're completely tracked. And I think people are starting to learn that, and they're recognizing that, and that might lead to the next round of Bitcoin development, where we see some more obfuscation for these addresses, or perhaps confidential amounts, as they've spoken of in the past, Greg Maxwell's idea. But there's definitely ways we could go. But right now, it's enough to have a decentralized, distributed monetary system. It doesn't have to be perfect right out of the gate. We still have a chance to improve on this. Tone, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And look, it's another one of those CoinDesk articles that frustrates me, is that it doesn't say anything. It doesn't give you any details. It doesn't give you any suggestions. They didn't talk about how they can help you with your privacy. They went to Christoph Atlas for a quote, and I used to be a bigger fan of Christoph Atlas than I am now. I don't know how long Christoph Atlas has been with blockchain.info. I know he's been there for a while. I'm sure they brought him in to help with their privacy. But one of the reasons why I never used blockchain.info is because in the early days, they were one of the few wallets, and they did one of the stupidest things possible for people's privacy. And I'm sure they've eliminated it since then, was they sent you your private key into your email address, which is ridiculous. And many people ended up getting their Bitcoin hacked that way, because people don't protect their email addresses, nor can they protect their email addresses, as we learned in Yahoo. So I don't know if he was there in those early days when these decisions were made, if he was there in those early days making those decisions, and I don't remember if he was or not. This would be the last person to ask for comment. I do apologize to Christoph if he wasn't there during those decisions and then he was brought in to clean those up.
I believe he came in afterwards. I know blockchain had some early problems, and it is still kind of a difficult to use wallet with the strange identifier key, and there's a couple other quirky things about the way you log in, and the mobile app sometimes is kind of klutzy. But I do appreciate that they went to Christoph Atlas for a quote here. He did write the book on Bitcoin privacy. It is available. And I think he would say kind of the same thing that I'm saying, that it's available to you, but you have to be very diligent and very focused, because there's many points where you could make a mistake. And I know anyone that's tried to use Tor and tried to protect their IP, one time you screw up, you don't turn on Tor, you're doomed. It's over. The whole project's done. And we've seen real world examples of this with the Dread Pirate Roberts, who famously posted on a message board saying something like, "Hey guys, can you help me set up a darknet market?" And he used his real name. And of course, there's just the tragic detail we learned during the trial. But actual security, actual privacy really takes a dedication and a focus that I'm not sure normal people who aren't CIA, KGB spies really have the discipline to hold up. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It has a lot to do with what you're doing. If you are doing something really, really that needs an anonymous coin, you want to take the extra steps to do it. But there were a lot of well-put comments. I like that Anderson comment. There were a lot of really well-written comments here, where people understand that Bitcoin isn't your best tool for privacy. It's not your best tool for anonymity. But people are realizing that, well, not everybody wants anonymity, not everybody needs anonymity. It would be great, but there are problems that come with anonymity. Like in the case of Zcash, no one has any idea if it's actually working. And some are, speculating the same thing for Monero, but I haven't really seen anything technical on that. A lot of, people pitching Monero here, which I don't think is a solution. But and they're right. But here's my problem with it, right? So you have Christoph Atlas, and I'm going to pick on him some more, where he is complaining that there isn't enough fungibility and there isn't enough privacy in Bitcoin, yet he's on the Bitcoin Unlimited side, which is basically keeping Bitcoin from advancing, creating this, infighting, where I would have hoped that by now our Bitcoin core developers would be getting Lightning Network out, because they don't have to worry about SegWit anymore. SegWit is, going to get in, the signaling is going up to, 60, 70%. Okay, good, we don't have to worry about SegWit anymore. Let's do Lightning. And once we have Lightning, that should give us some more anonymity, and then maybe we can focus on that. By not allowing
I think the fear is that Lightning Network will actually give them less anonymity. I think people are worried that the way it passes coins from person to person creates a trail. Maybe those trails are still accessible. Maybe it's not that great an update. I think that's where the concern is coming, and maybe it's unfounded, but they are afraid.
That's not. You know what? I may have to double check. That's not what I've heard, and I'm sure people will.
I understand they're worried any second level solution takes the control out of their hands and perhaps puts it into a company's hands. This is my understanding of their argument. I could be wrong as well, but I'm just trying to.
Well, no, that's perfectly fine. It puts it in the company's hands, so it's up to the company whether they want to open source the code of their Lightning Network channel, to show that there is anonymity going on. But yeah, if Google is accepting Bitcoin, they're going to want to know who you are, right? I mean, that's how it always works. It's hard to force a change into the industry, right? They have to see it for themselves. And most things don't require anonymity. I mean, we'd like it, but yeah. So I didn't like this article. It didn't really present any solutions whatsoever, just complaints. So bring some solutions. And you know what? Bitcoin Unlimited isn't a solution. Get SegWit in there, get Lightning Network out. And you know what? If people aren't happy with the anonymity of Lightning Network, then somebody else will build something else. But you still need SegWit as that backbone to get there. And again, I'm already talking too much SegWit. That's our last story if we get to it, because we're already everything in Bitcoin right now revolves around SegWit. I'm sorry, guys, it needs to get in there. It's a good piece of code. At least from my understanding of outsourcing the technology aspect of it to people that I respect and understanding that technology.
Let's move on to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolute perfect privacy and 0 being you'd be better off writing your username and password on a public whiteboard, how private is Bitcoin? Tone Vase.
Man, this is a tough question. It's as private as you make it. But yeah, there's one more comment I should have said earlier, in that permissionless value transfer is way more important than private value transfer. And I realized this more recently, in that, so what if people know what you're doing? The fact that they can't stop you is way more important than whether they know what you did or not. So my view of Bitcoin, I'd give it a 5. I'd give it right down the middle. I'd give it a 5. I'd give Bitcoin a 5 for privacy.
You stole my answer. I'm going right there with a 5. Lots of room to grow, but plenty of room to go backwards as well. Let's move on to the next issue. Issue 3, Bitcoin price breaks upward. Is it heading for $2,000 a coin? As you know, Bitcoin does not exist in a vacuum. Bitcoin is affected by larger forces, some forces so large that they have their own gravity. New President Donald Trump has been talking tough and threatening a trade war with China over their Pacific expansion. Meanwhile, The Chinese have begun saber-rattling, saying that war with the US is now. Will this newfound uncertainty and the reality of a trade war with China drive the Bitcoin price into the stars? Tone Vase.
Oh, all right. We're talking about price, so this means this will also be my prediction or story of the week.
Price, China, and Trump. It's all in there.
Okay, so let me briefly touch base on China and Trump. Again, these articles are really stretching. I mean, all of these articles are like, is there really nothing else to write about?
It's a slow week.
It can't possibly be that slow. It's just bad. Okay, first of all, no one, and I mean no one, not even Trump, has any idea what kind of how the global economics will be shaped over the first 12 months of Trump's presidency. Nobody knows. No economist, no Fed chairman, no one from the People's Bank of China. No one knows how Trump can't just make laws on his own. There's still Congress involved, right? There are still advisors to Trump. He's still trying to get his economic team together, as far as I know. So no one knows. Like, speculating on what's going to happen in a month between the U.S. and China, as far as economic relationship goes, it's an insane exercise to attempt to guess it. And I even hate the idea. Like, I take China week to week, month to month, and I just look at how things develop. China has their own problems. We have our problems. We're dealing with Trump. They're dealing with their own political situation. And this exercise is insane. I don't even know how. I read this article, and I'm like, what does the $2,000 price in the headline has to do with anything in this article? Like, I'm also keeping an eye who's writing this thing. Okay, I'll assume it. Okay, I've interacted with him before, and it was Ken Huggins that wrote the CoinDesk article. I haven't been a huge fan of his work. You know what? This is completely has nothing to do with anything. I'm sorry, I have nothing to comment on. As much as I like to, speculate on economics and trading and think that I think I know everything, and sometimes I think I know everything, and I have no idea. And even if I knew exactly what Trump was going to do in relation with China over trade war, and I knew what the Chinese retaliation was, even with those pieces of information, I would have no idea what it means for the global economy, or specifically for Bitcoin. I wouldn't know anything, and I don't think anyone in the world does. If someone is trying to sell you this information that they know something, they're lying to you. It's complete bullshit. You know what? I'm going to save my price talk for prediction.
I'm going to take the opposite side of Tone's views here, and I'm going to tell you everything that Trump's going to do and everything that's going to happen. First of all, Trump is definitely going to start a trade war, probably with China, probably with Mexico, maybe with both. And I know for those of us who haven't experienced trade wars, we've only read about them, having a shortage of goods in the market, not being able to get vegetables, the prices going up 10 times. These things are crazy. They're catastrophic. And basically, they're causing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And as we've said over and over again, Bitcoin is the new gold. In the old days, when you had fear, and you're like, I don't know about the stock market, I don't know about the dollar, I don't even know about housing and real estate. Money in gold. Keep it safe in gold. And I think we're seeing that now. Put your money in Bitcoin. Keep it safe. Now, $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, the Drapers are still running around saying, maybe so. I think Bitcoin's really valuable. The more people that hear about it, the better. And if this fear and uncertainty and doubt acts as an advertising agent, bringing us more people to Bitcoin, I think the price will go up. Tone Vase, any comment on that?
No, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, the price is going to go up, but the price was going to go up anyway, right? So the question now is, how much effect will China have? And with our last week's show, between the PBOC coming in, telling them to stop the leverage, telling them to put some fees in there. Chinese volume drastically dropped, and I think it's a good thing. So that might take some speculative aspect out of it, and also. Let's assume, and I've always been iffy on this, let's assume that there's a lot of people, a lot of speculators in China, and they like to borrow the Chinese, they like to borrow the money, buy Bitcoin, and then, pay back the loan. What happened during the crash last month was the offshore borrowing rate went to like a 30-year high. And I think that had a lot to do with it. So again, going back to China, I think one of the biggest factors is how expensive is it to borrow money out there, right? Because I think a lot of these people want to trade on leverage, and they have sources where they can borrow money. If the borrowing rate's high, then there'll be less speculation. If the borrowing rate's low, there'll be more speculation, right? If the yuan continues to devalue, and there might be more capital flight. And if the yuan appreciates, who knows? There might not be capital flight. And we don't know which way it's going to go. And nobody knows until China floats the currency, and they're not floating the currency. If they floated the currency, nobody knows which direction it would go. It might appreciate, it might devalue. Right? Again, this is the 1 month they're arguing one thing, next month they're arguing another thing. Right? Like all you heard was like 6 months ago, like for the last 3 years, up until 6 months ago, China needs to float their currency. If they floated their currency, the value of the Chinese yuan would go up. They wouldn't be able to devalue their currency. So they're artificially dropping the value of the yuan. And then China goes ahead and forcibly increases the value of the yuan, and everyone is upset. Like, again, make up your damn mind. These China stories drive me up the wall. It's because people have no clue what they're talking about, and they assume that they do. If China floated the yuan tomorrow, I have absolutely no idea which direction the free market would take it. There's just as many, and now people are saying China has all these problems. They're losing their reserves. They don't have any capital. They're getting into debt. So people are like, okay, so which direction will their currency go if it was free floating out there in the world? Some people are saying it's going to go up. Some people are saying it's going to go down. And now because of their government problems and their financial problems. So nobody freaking knows. Speculating on the economics of China, especially from Americans or people in Europe or Africa, it's silly. It's absolutely silly. Nobody knows.
I agree. Nobody knows, but suddenly it's vital to know. You could predict the future if you knew, but nobody does. Let's move on to the next issue. Issue 4. Litecoin Seg Wit adoption. Litecoin, a copy of Bitcoin that uses the script hashing algorithm rather than SHA-256, has asked their miners to begin signaling their support for segregated witness on Litecoin. Segregated witness, the oft-discussed Bitcoin scaling solution, stores the signatures separately, allowing for more space in the block, while at the same time removing transaction malleability and allowing for the creation of sidechains. Needs only 75% adoption to be soft forked into Litecoin. Will Litecoin achieve segregated witness before Bitcoin, who incidentally is requiring a higher threshold of 95%, and successful? Will it inspire Bitcoin to adopt SegWit? I ask you, Thomas Hunt. I would say, and since I wrote this question, I agree with it. I believe that Litecoin will activate segregated witness. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say it's going to work. That's just a guess. And I'm going to say that because it works on Litecoin, Bitcoin will be inspired and they will want to adopt it too. Once again, Litecoin and the altcoins are functioning, as we've always said they were, a test net for Bitcoin. This is a chance for us to try out segregated witness. Maybe it blows up in their face and it only ruins Litecoin. which would be great because it didn't ruin Bitcoin. Apologies to Litecoin fans. This is similar to Ethereum. Without a test network, without a way to see what would happen with that hard fork, you could end up with 2 Ethereums, 2 Bitcoins, 2 Litecoins, and that would be a disaster. Tone Vase, your thoughts on Litecoin segregated witness?
I agree. I hope Litecoin gets adopted by, I hope SegWit gets adopted by Litecoin. And it only needs a 75% threshold. But I don't think there's much danger in SegWit. So if it goes to Litecoin, it works there for a little bit. I mean, the system isn't really going to be stressed because no one uses Litecoin for any meaningful transactions. But at least it will show a community of Bitcoin that people can come up with some consensus, even though it's only 75%. So, and I do believe that it will help. It will help Bitcoin, get its act together and get SegWit in. That 95% threshold may need to be lowered in the future. If Litecoin gets it past the 75% and it doesn't split, it doesn't fork, might be safe to do 80-85% with Bitcoin. That's what I would think.
I do like the 95% consensus level because I think it really is consensus. The problem is we're in such a politicized environment that I could see people trying to buy 10, 15% of the hashing rate just to screw over segregated witness, not because they actually don't agree with it or there's any kind of signaling problem. So only for that reason, I could kind of agree with you for taking down the consensus because of the politicized environment.
That would be really the only reason. And also, them buying that hash rate is going to get expensive, and they can't do it forever, especially if they are buying the wrong blocks and they don't even get the rewards for it, right? So, and I expect more of those screw-ups, a lot more of them. So eventually it's going to get expensive and they will stop doing it. Now, there are, what if SegWit doesn't get approved on Litecoin? What if they don't get 75% consensus? Now it creates a bit of a problem. Now the Bitcoin speculation might concede the fact that there won't be a block size increase and there won't be SegWit. And Bitcoin, it is what it is, and it just stays that way. I was also going to share a screen really quickly just to show the current support of what's going on. And the article I felt was a little biased towards Bitcoin Unlimited. It's just the way things were phrased. And again, it's Stan Higgins, who's not, I don't know, I've been reading some of his work and I'm not a huge fan, I'm sorry. It just seemed, it's one of these things, it's like when I debate certain people are like, oh, you're talking all this crap about Steemit, how come you don't debate a Steemit person? And my answer is, I don't want to debate a Steemit person because I don't want to give a scammer who deserves maybe 0.5% of the viewing time, 50% of the viewing time, right? I don't want to give a scammer a voice and make it even acknowledge the fact that he has a reasonable opinion. And my view on Bitcoin Unlimited is that it's an attempt at a hard fork, splitting the Bitcoin network into two. So to me, the legitimacy is very, very bad for Bitcoin Unlimited. So exposing Bitcoin Unlimited is like, well, it's a 50-50 choice. But it's not. I mean, one is thoroughly tested, and one is a complete mess. So what I wanted to show was the current state. And look, 8% of the network is still pushing for 8 megabyte blocks, for God's sakes, right? This is the reason why that threshold of 95% may need to be lowered. And the majority is not signaling anything. And I'm not technical when it comes to mining. I've never mined. But like, here's the thing, right? So I don't like how this is broken down because to me it's very, very confusing. Like if you look at this chart, right, you have the green, which is Bitcoin Core, And then you have, sorry, the orange, which is Bitcoin Core, and the green, which is Bitcoin Unlimited. And you see Bitcoin Unlimited rising as Bitcoin Core is dropping. But is Bitcoin Core SegWit, or is it just Bitcoin Core? Because to me, those are kind of different things. And I'm not even a miner. I could be totally wrong or way outside my area of expertise. But you can run Bitcoin Core code and not signal for SegWit. And you can also run Bitcoin Unlimited code. But if you're running Bitcoin Unlimited code, you're automatically signaling for Bitcoin Unlimited. So I think the way this webpage is structured, I personally believe it's very, very confusing, because you want to separate the people that are running Bitcoin Core that don't want SegWit and don't want Bitcoin Unlimited versus people that are running Bitcoin Core and signaling for SegWit, right? And again, my knowledge in these matters are very rudimentary. But and one other note, I believe, was in the comments, and I thought this was a very good comment. Wow, these articles like CoinDesk and especially Cointelegraph, they're really lacking comments. Well, like we put a video up, we get 40, 50 comments. But
it's not a good sign. You really want to see that interactivity, the people reading your work and then giving a comment back, having a discussion. It's not a good sign when you lose that.
You do, and you want that discussion to be, on topic, not, talking about how, inaccurate this was or that was, right? You want to stir a discussion on the topic itself. And this was a good comment, just like comparing the two. Maybe I can just zoom in my page a little bit. Just want to get it out there, on video for future reference.
Do you want to read the comment? It's pretty small.
I don't want
on my screen. It's pretty small. So
sure. That's why I just zoomed in. I'll read the comment. So here's the comment. So SegWit, developed by some of the best programmers in the world, is designed to fix transaction malleability, slightly increase transaction capacity, and pave the way for Lightning Network, which in turn is designed to increase transaction capacity way beyond Visa Network scaling issues solved. You get the impression that Bitcoin Unlimited would lead to more frustration, technical problems, and while it may lead to an increase in transaction capacity, probably won't fix it to any significant extent. It's likely to end up being an unwindly mess. And I agree with that. The increased transaction capacity, the block size would stay the same, but the way things are fit into that block is different. So I think it's possible to get it up to like double the amount of transactions in there. But again, this is how SegWit puts more transactions into a block is left for the more technical people.
I also think the commenter makes a good point on SegWit is a very advanced technical solution, whereas doubling the block size from 1 meg to 2 megs is kind of a simple solution, and it doesn't really scale in the long term. Sure, you could double it again to 4, 8, 16, whatever you want to go.
So it's not raising the debt ceiling. It's raising the debt ceiling, right? I mean, again, this goes to the same point. You have all of these, most of these people screaming for big blocks are these, anti-Fed libertarian types. And by doubling the block size, okay, you're raising the debt ceiling. You hate it when the government does it, but you do it.
Yeah, well, they don't call it kicking the can down the road for nothing. It does seem to work every time we do it.
That's a good point. I'm not going to argue that.
There is kind of a wish, if we had a CEO of Bitcoin, I wish that they would have chosen kind of a middle way. Like maybe we raise the block size to 2 meg and we do SegWit anyway, and we kind of have both solutions. Maybe there's technical reasons for that.
No, you can't. You can't, because raising the block size requires a hard fork, and we can't have a hard fork. There's a whole other debate, right? And the unlimited block people, they want the hard fork because they think it'll be good for the ecosystem, and the chances of 2 Ethereums or 2 Bitcoins, who cares about that probability? And maybe they just need more time. Maybe they need to see what happens between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, because Ethereum Classic ain't going nowhere. That's the thing. Like, it bothers me that this should not even be debatable, but it's the biggest debate Bitcoin has, and it drives me up the wall. And for those watching, follow Whale Panda on Twitter if you want to stay up to date on Bitcoin Unlimited versus SegWit.
The other thing about this debate that bothers me is it's been going on for years and years with seemingly no end in sight. I thought we had it with SegWit, but now the adoption getting up to that 95%. Hopefully the Litecoin will push us through, but it's just been a long, long run. But that's, again, we're developing open source software in public. This is a public process. It's never been done before. This is an open source project that deals with your money. So it's very important. If you lose your money, you get upset. You lose your password, you could change it. It's not that bad. But let's move on to the exit question. Favorite early altcoin? Litecoin, Purecoin, Dogecoin, or Feathercoin? Tone Vase.
Oh, this is such a loaded question, especially for me now that my podcast Crypto Scam is out, where I'm going to be talking about every single coin. And Purecoin, that hasn't even been in the top 100 coins in like forever.
Very first proof of stake coin, ahead of its time in many ways.
Oh yeah, that really was ahead of its time.
Everyone now is like proof of stake.
Well, no, that was Dan Larimer's big thing. All right, I'm sharing screen once again. Let's take a look at what we got here. Oh wow, Bitcoin went up while we were talking. Look at that. Ethereum's at number 2. Ethereum is nonsense. To me, on this entire list, Tether doesn't count. To me, on this entire list, this list should be 1 coin and 2 testnets. Coin is the coin. My 2 testnets are Monero and Litecoin. They should be 2 and 3. Everything else should be worth less than a penny. And the market capitalization of Bitcoin, which you can see on the screen, that should be like at 98, 97, 98% versus the rest of them, with Monero and Litecoin taking the rest. I think Monero and Litecoin are testnets. They'll be good for different reasons. SegWit might get tested on Litecoin. Monero is playing around with anonymity. And just like Litecoin picking up SegWit, if it's looking good, maybe it will be easier for Bitcoin to adopt it. And the same thing goes for anonymity, right? If Monero is doing something right with anonymity, then Bitcoin will just adopt it. Like, I don't see a future in Litecoin and Monero either, but I'm kind of glad they exist.
Well, I wrote the question, and I've always been a fan of Feathercoin, so I wanted to just talk about Feathercoin. Feathercoin was before Dogecoin. Feathercoin had the idea of community, the idea of tipping, and the idea of being a really inexpensive coin. It was, at the time it was printed, it was called Litecoin's Quarter, because it had 4 times as many coins as Litecoin. So they hoped it would be worth a quarter. I'm sure it's not worth that now, but I enjoyed Feathercoin. It's how I met Chris Ellis. Chris Ellis was an early community manager for Feathercoin and helped get Feathercoin going and really help people learn about the idea of building a community around a coin. And for that, I appreciate Feathercoin. But don't go out and buy anything or anything. It's not an endorsement in that way. It's more of just a celebration of good work and a different time. It's now a long time ago. But let's move on to prediction or story of the week. Tone Vase, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Yes, I'm just going to go with a prediction, and I have to make this quick because I'm already late. But so we talked about a $2,000 Bitcoin earlier in the show in a Cointelegraph article. I'm not sure where they got that number. I have an idea of maybe where they got that number. But this was an article published in the Bitcoinist, and they reached out to me on like the first day of the year. I think it was published January 3rd. So literally on like January 2nd or 1st, I got a request from them. What do I think about Bitcoin in 2017? And I was quoted along with Reggie Middleton and Kim.com. So this was great that it was just us three. And let me zoom in my screen one more time. There you go. So this is what I wrote. I see a very strong start to 2017. A lot depends on SegWit passing. In confidence and speculation in eventual consensus on SegWit being passed that should drive the price to as high as $2,000 by end of summer. Just like the price went up 3 months prior to the halving, then pulled back for 3 months then after. Then sometime in August, I expect a correction so that the year end, we should be around 1,500 to 1,750. So on the first of the year, I made a prediction that the price of Bitcoin would be $2,000 by mid-August. So that's my late summer. End of summer is for me is mid-August till early September. So I'm looking for a $2,000 price tag by that time, followed by a correction that should keep us above our current levels. And looking at the price charts, let's take a look. Here's the weekly chart. We are back to 1019 on Bitstamp. Everything is looking good. I have absolutely no resistance, and it's clear to all-time highs. Here is the daily. We're in this channel right here. Fell out of it for a minute on this panic, and now we're going back up a little bit. Here is the hourly. I'm not a big fan of hourly. I just added this other bigger channel. We were in this channel here, bringing it up again. Nothing really to worry about. And then I published this on TradingView, and I can zoom in easier on this chart, where this is back at the end of 2015, where we had this line that I have here as resistance, and then we bumped into it once, came close. Bumped into it once, came close, busted out of it, and then we repeated this pattern one more time. We came back up, hit it a couple of times, and then we busted out of it recently, and this pattern is starting to repeat, and I think we're going to get back to 1150, and throughout the spring, we'll be bouncing up against it, and then we break out with a nice breakout into the summer. I'm still bullish on the price of Bitcoin. I have been ever since this breakout above 760. I said that your perfect buy point would be back at 760 as it comes back and tests this line, just like it came back and tested this line right here, and then we go up. But this took longer than this past one to take longer than the current one. And this chart will probably be grossly wrong, but will be a good breakout. We may go up above it, but I'm bullish.
Excellent news. Tone is bullish. And now a prediction: the New England Patriots will win the Super Bowl. That's not some wild, crazy prediction. They have the better team, the better defense, and not the better offense, but they have the better defense. And as you know, defense wins championships. So I'm not really going out on a limb here, but I am predicting the team that everyone loves to hate, except people from New England, will win the Super Bowl. The commissioner will have to give the trophy to Tom Brady, the villain of the Deflategate scandal, and it'll all come back together, all tied up with a nice little bow. Another great season for the NFL. So enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. And I think we're about out of time. So until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.